All right, so today I want to talk about a study that the CCFR is linked to that came out in Canada recently. Now, during all this time of gun control and gun control garbage, again, I want to just keep pumping out the videos debunking all this garbage of the left. Now, when it comes to today, one of the arguments the left always makes when it comes to gun control is, oh, it'll reduce suicide. Like, and this is one of the things that you bring up after you debunk most of the main myths. Like, it gun control reduces crime, reduces the murder rate, which is both false. It the studies out of the states show that when concealed carry is implemented, more petty crime actually tends to go up, but the prevailing thought of that goes is that when you reduce the robbery, the rape, the more violent, the more you know you know prominent crimes, I guess, the ones that are more serious, the criminals that normally would commit those crimes resort to committing other crimes that are less serious, I guess. At least that's how the hypothesis goes. But when it comes to suicide, again, that's one of the big arguments the left makes is, oh, well, gun control will reduce the rates of suicide, which is absolutely false. The evidence is overwhelming. And I mean, at least out of other countries. Now we have a study out of Canada that shows that the basic theory goes as, I guess the one thing that the left is right about, that gun control often will reduce the rates of firearm homicide. But what they don't tell you is that the rates of killing oneself in other ways goes up to compensate for that difference. So again, it doesn't reduce the overall rate of homicide, which is the only thing that matters. Again, which is another reason why the left is absolutely insane, is that they think that if they can reduce the rate of firearm homicide, but the total rate of homicide stays the same, that's some big win, that they've actually accomplished something, which they actually haven't. They've spent a bunch of money, time, and effort to do something that doesn't actually make a difference in the whole scheme of things. They just have, I mean, a lot of them just have a irrational paranoia of guns and they want to ban them. Other ones know that the only way that they can get their socialist utopia is to have gun control. So that's kind of why they want to do that. Now, if you want to go check out this study, the CCFR links to it in a tweet from June 18th. So if you want to go check it out for yourself, go check it out. It's worth a read. Now, I'm not going to read it. I mean, the summary is here. It is very long, so I'm not going to read it, but I'm going to pull up the charts here because they're kind of the main take-home points. But it would take me like an hour to read the whole thing, so I'm not going to do that. So if you want to go check it out, go check it out. Um, but here is the charts here. So this is the male homicide rate, and you can see the non-firearm is the top graph, and the firearm is the bottom one. And you can see the chart starts in 1981 and it goes through 2016, and the rate of homicide from firearms actually went down slightly. Non-firearm went down slightly as well. The female homicide, sorry, this is the homicide rate. Sorry, this isn't the the suicide rate. The homicide rate is what we're talking about here. It has went down slightly for both non-firearm and firearm. Getting to the suicide rate, let's see if we can find it here. Yeah, there it is right here. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong chart here. This is the suicide rate or this chart right here. So the other one's just the homicide rates. I don't know why I pulled that up. But as far as the suicide rate goes, these are the numbers right here. Aggregate suicide rate per 100,000, again going back to 1980 through 2016. The box and the dark graph is hanging, and the lighter one with the lighter boxes is firearm. So again, the firearm rate in the 1980s hovered around between about 3 and 5. The firearm rate over the last 10 years or so, at least starting in 2016, is around 2. So again, the numbers have clearly been cut. Um, and again, to compensate for that, the rate of hanging went from about between 3 and 4 to between about 5 and 6. So again, it's exactly what I said, exactly what I said. And again, these numbers just back up the numbers that come out of every other country. Again, I mean, you take Japan for example too. Japan has one of the highest suicide rates in the world, I believe, and they have very strict gun control. Um, so the link between the access to guns and suicide, it's just not true. In a nutshell, when you implement gun control, people just kill themselves in other ways. Gun control does not cure depression. Again, gun control does not cure depression. Curing depression is a very, very hard thing, and for people that have never dealt with it, it's a very hard thing to deal with. It's incredibly hard. And just thinking that banning guns is going to do anything is absolutely insane. There's multiple ways to kill yourself. Even if you banned ropes, people would still find other ways of doing it, and not that that would make much of a difference anyway. Again, the male suicide rate, again, the numbers stack up very closely. I mean, the one thing to point out here is something that I've talked about before, but um, look at the difference between the male suicide versus female suicide. Again, the male suicide rate is, over the last 10 years, at least starting in 2016, is about 18 to 20 per 100,000. The female suicide rate is around 6. So again, the male suicide rate is about 3 to 4 times as high as the female suicide rate. Like, where are the feminists? Where are all the people that want, no, we want equality between the genders? Where is this? Like, this is, I mean, I know it's a bit of a rant, but I want to do it just because it's important. This is one of the many reasons why feminism and why the whole equality of the genders thing is absolute and utter pure garbage. It's pure garbage. If females were killing themselves 3 to 4 times as much as men, that would be the biggest. That would be bigger than the "we want the right to vote." That would be our modern day "we want the right to vote." That would be an infinite amount of times bigger than the fake gender pay gap garbage. But yet when it's men, nobody cares. When men are 80, 90% of homeless, nobody cares. When men, um, the female male sentencing gap is far, I think it's about 5 times greater than the black white sentencing gap. And again, nobody cares. The black white sentencing gap is something that's brought up all the time, even though most of it can be explained because of prior arrests and prior time spent in jail. Again, nobody cares. The black white sentencing gap is this huge issue in society, and we need to deal with it. But the male female gap is 5 times bigger than that, and nobody cares. Again, this is one of the many things. This is something in society we should be worried about a lot more, like a lot more. But again, getting back to the suicide thing, you look at female suicides. Again, firearms for female is almost non-existent. Like it's like it's like point 0.2, point 0.3 per 100,000. Hanging is about 2.5. So again, women are what, almost 10 times as likely, probably about 10 times as likely to hang themselves than they are to shoot themselves with a firearm. Again, one of the this is another thing that bothers me about the left. One of the infinite amount of things that bothers me is that the government of Canada and the gun control people are acting like this gun control they just implemented is it's preventing violence against women and it's saving women's lives, even though women are 10 times as likely to kill themselves by hanging themselves as killing themselves with a gun. So again, you're not doing anything. And one of the big things they're pointing out too is the whole domestic violence thing. Again, that's a flat out lie. And that, number one, it's not going to prevent domestic violence. Um, Legal gun owners get a background check every day. So if they were arrested for domestic violence, their guns would be taken away and guaranteed. And if they don't, it's because the RCMP screwed up. So that's a terrible argument. Another thing to point out too is that men are only slightly more likely to abuse women or their wives or girlfriends than women are to abuse their husbands or boyfriends. So this is the other problem with society nowadays, is that whenever you hear the term domestic abuse, you immediately think of men beating on their wives or girlfriends, when in reality, men are actually only slightly more likely to abuse women than women are to abuse men. Um, But anyway, the take-home point of this video being is that there's no correlation whatsoever between gun control and a reduction in suicide. This is one of the many arguments that the left makes when it comes to gun control, and it's flat out not true. It is a lie. It needs to be debunked. And is this going to change people's minds? No, it's not going to change people's minds, but at least it may change people's minds that are kind of centrist, but it's not going to change the gun control fanatics' minds. They're fanatics. It's basically a cult. Nothing, no amount of evidence will change their mind. The evidence already is overwhelming. So again, if they've already chose to pretend like all the massive amounts of evidence that already exists doesn't exist, then again, nothing's going to change their mind. So that's basically what I wanted to talk about today. This is a very, very important study. I mean, the CCFR puts it in a good way. The evidence is clear and overwhelming. Firearm laws do not have had no benefit to prevent to benefit homicide or suicide rates. This peer-reviewed study from Dr. Langman is the first to examine rates by age. The science is in, and the prevalence of firearms is not a factor. Now, again, um, you have all these leftists that say, "Oh, we follow science, we follow the evidence." No, you really don't. You really don't follow the science or the evidence. You follow your dogma. You follow your propaganda, basically. Now, again, do people on the right ignore science sometimes? Yeah, but do they more? No. I mean, the thing that they bring up with the right always is climate change. Even though climate change, the there's no real evidence. The overwhelming majority of evidence they have is the whole all the scientists agree, even though what they're really saying largely is the scientists agree on the models. The scientists don't actually agree on the data because that's impossible, because the data has time and time again proven them to be wrong. So they can't possibly argue about the data. What they're really saying is that the scientists agree on the models. The models almost always turn out to be false, which means again that they have zero credibility. If anything, the left is denying science. The left constantly denies stuff like this. The left constantly denies the science between the genders. The left constantly denies the idea of the differences between men and women. The left denies the IQ science. The left denies infinite amount of science, and yet nobody calls them on it. And that's kind of why I wanted to make videos like this, and especially with the gun control stuff, because things in Canada are getting very, very, very scary right now, and it's very, very, very concerning. So, yeah, that's the one thing I wanted to talk about today. And again, like I say, this is one of the big arguments the left makes when it comes to gun control is, oh, it'll prevent suicides, when in reality that's not true. The evidence already overwhelmingly showed that out of other countries. Now we have a study out of Canada. There already may have been studies, I don't know, but we have studies out of Canada that definitively prove that as well. So, whenever you hear that, just bring this kind of stuff up. So, anyway, if you like the video, make sure to hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. Check out my PayPal and email. I got linked in the description. Again, appreciate any donations, but the very least, just hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. And last couple things, as always, check me out on Twitter and check me out on BitChute. It's very important that you follow and like and subscribe and support people that are speaking the truth. So make sure you do that. And yeah, all the links are in the description, so find them all there.